And welcome back to the channel. This is episode 2 of the wrecked Volkswagen Golf R rebuild project, and if you missed the last one, here's a quick recap. So the car was delivered to me from a Copart site. Again, shout out to M&M Recovery. The first thing I wanted to do was look through the damages, so see what parts were damaged, and onto the airbags. Of course, every airbag in the car was deployed, so I got started with the dashboard, the steering wheel and the knee airbag. Quite a simple process, but it looks good and it saves a lot of hassle later on. Onto the front end, getting it all stripped apart. Start off with the crash bar, and then I went on to the slam panel and all the radiators. Pretty much everything was destroyed except the radiator, intercooler and condenser, which is good because it saves us a lot of money when trying to buy a new one. Onto the bonnet was completely destroyed. There was no chance of getting that straightened out, so went ahead and ordered a new bonnet along with the hinges. When the bonnets hit this hard, you can almost guarantee that the hinges are going to be bent, so saving myself straightening those ones out, I went ahead and replaced them for new ones. The last hidden damage was the washer bottle. It came in two pieces, the lower and upper half, and so I got those replaced. Now if you missed that one, please go back in the channel and check that video out, but let's not waste any more time. We've got the front end completely torn apart on this Golf, so we need to get it back together. Now, when I got this car delivered, I noticed the auxiliary cooler that's here on the passenger side was non-existent on the driver's side. So that meant the engine had drained all its coolant and we couldn't run the car for a long period of time. But luckily, when we got the radiator and intercooler off the car, there was no damage on them at all. However, the slam panel that holds them in place was destroyed, so that's where this comes in. A direct replacement slam panel. My plan is to get this intercooler and radiator cradled into the slam panel and then onto the car in one piece. So let's get started with that. So I'm starting off by putting the original intercooler and the radiator into the new slam panel. They're held in with these weird white clips, which luckily got saved in the accident and didn't come with the new slam panel. So I'm just taking it off the remains of the old slam panel and putting it onto the new front panel. This is the second half of the bonnet catch release cable. Luckily it wasn't snapped, and so I disconnected it from the little junction box that sits on top of the headlight and then fed it onto the new latch. Because I'm doing it alone, I'm trying to hold it up and support it whilst trying to plumb the pipes in as well. As you can see, the coolant is leaking out everywhere. I found a rock just to hold the whole pack together and a bit elevated, just so I can get the pipes in. At this point, nothing else holds the radiator in place. It's simply the coolant pipes that feed through the back. And of course for the intercooler, you have the thick intercooler pipes. Now, in an ideal world, what I'd want to do is bolt the slam panel to the crash bar with the rad packs in place. However, because I'm working alone, I'm just doing it section at a time. So this is where we're at right now. Managed to get the rad pack in with the slam panel and the crash bar. I guess it would have been more wise to bolt all three things together first and then bolt it to the chassis. But everything lined up great. Got two bolts into the chassis leg there. Slam panel bolts through the crash bar and then hooked up all the radiators. Next up is this auxiliary cooler on the side here. Where it's been snapped off, you can see the nipple from the auxiliary coolers still in the pipe, so I need to release that pull these metal brackets back, pull these nipples out and get the new cooler on. So you join me here on the next day. Let's have a quick run through what I got done yesterday. So to begin with, I got all the intercooler, the radiator and the AC condenser back on. As you can see, all hooked up. I've got the radiator connected and down below we've got the intercooler on, followed by the new slam panel, and then finally this crash bar on the front. And if we look over here, we've got the auxiliary cooler back on as well. It's just plumbed in with these two flow and return pipes and then three 13mm bolts. So the last thing to get done before we can get this car started is fill the cooling system up. I'm going to do it with water first and then make sure there's no leaks. If there's any leaks, then we can get that repaired first. If there's no leaks, we can then drain the water and then refill with the relevant coolant. I believe it's the pink coolant on these Golfs. So there you have it. We have water in the cooling system now. Like I said, we're going to run it. If there's no leaks, we can then drain this water coolant and refill it with the relevant coolant. Like I said, I think it's the pink coolant that goes in this Golf, but we'll double check online. So I've only had this car running once, and that was when the car was delivered. We haven't run it since then. All I did was reverse the car into the driveway. It had no coolant, so let's give it a go. Let's check for any leaks. So far so good. The car's running now, it's sounding perfect. There's absolutely no coolant leaks. I can't see anything leaking. Let's let it warm up a little bit and give it a few revs. Right, so now that we know that the car runs and there's no leaks, I'm going to change the coolant, but a bit later. We've got so many broken plastics that we need to replace, starting with this one. This is a bumper support bracket. Now, I bought all my plastics brand new from Volkswagen. It just worked out a lot cheaper than eBay. Some things are really cheap from the dealers and some things are very cheap online. But all the plastics I've got from eBay. We can get the bonnet latch back on. If you see there on the bonnet, we haven't got the catch. And yeah, let's see how it goes. Now this bumper support bracket is really easy to do. It's held on with 3 Torx bit screws, 1 in the center and 2 on either side onto the slam panel. And onto the headlights. Starting off with the passenger side, this was the side that wasn't damaged at all, so not expecting any surprises here. The headlight's fairly simple to screw in. 1 Torx bit goes through the bumper bracket in the wing onto the side of the headlight, and then 1 at the back of the headlight, and then 1 at the front of the headlight straight through into the slam panel. Now, I'm not worried about lining anything up at this point. I'm just getting everything on, and then once the bumper's in place, I can then move the headlight if I need to. Onto the bonnet catch, held in by two 10mm bolts, and as you can see it started to rain pretty heavy, but that's not going to stop us. Now if you remember back in episode 1 I spoke about the wires that were damaged, so I'm going ahead and soldering on the new plugs onto the existing wires. A little bit of flux and then soldering on the existing wire onto the new plug.
It will help if you leave a comment on how to do it properly.
Now easy on the abuse, this is the first time I've ever soldered, so I'm trying to do it as neat as I can. Applying some heat shrink to those solder joints. And onto the upper headlight support brackets. Held in again with 3 Torx bit screws. Seems like this whole car is just held together with Torx bits, but 2 into the slam panel and then 1 through the headlight into the structure of the car. The driver's side is just a repeat of what I did on the passenger side. However, because the impact was on the driver's side, I'm expecting a bit more effort to go into lining it up perfectly. I won't worry about that until the bonnet's on properly and the grills are in with the front bumper. Right, so what I've done is I've just disconnected the radiator line. You can see it just there dripping out, and that's caused all the water coolant that I put in to drain out, and then we'll go ahead and refill it with the relevant coolant. As you just saw, we got the coolant system filled, we've got it bled, it's holding level nicely. Don't think we have a lot more to do. We need a front bumper skin. Most of our grills survived in the accident, so we can transfer them over to the new bumper. But I think that's all we've got time for today. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you very much for watching. If you've got any feedback, please drop it in the comments down below, and join me at the same time next week for the next episode.